We're going to look here at how we calculate the values of logarithms, especially when they start having different bases. We're going to start here just with number one, which is actually a simpler example than the others, as you'll see. In number one, break out your calculator and let's actually find this value here. Now, depending on what type of calculator you have, the keystrokes will be a little bit different. If you're on the type of calculator where when you press the log button, and yes, make sure that you can find the log button on your calculator there. For some of you, when you just press that button right at the start, you're going to actually see displayed on your screen where it's actually going to write out log on your screen. That's what I'm going to describe as the graphing calculator, because most of the calculators that do that are graphing calculators. Not all of them, but most of them. So if yours does that, follow the instructions as we go through this and deal with the graphing calculator. If you're on one of those, you're just going to press that log button, and then you're just going to type in 30, and then press enter. And then that will give you your answer. Now, if you're doing this on a scientific calculator, however, that does not display everything as you type it in up on the screen, but rather just shows you numbers, your order is going to be a little bit different. On these types of calculators, you actually enter the number first. So you'd press 30, you would enter 30, and then after you have 30 displayed on your screen, you would then press the log button at that point. When you press log on a scientific calculator, it instantly takes the logarithm of whatever number is up on your screen and it gives you your answer. So no equals needed because it's already doing that for you. So do that calculation and then let's check and make sure you got the right answer out of it. You should be able to get a number of about 1.48 here. Now when you take a look at number two then, number two, it looks like there's something else going on here, right? Number two, we got that 5. That 5 is the base of our logarithm. Number one didn't have a base written in. The actual base there in number one was 10. When we don't write in the base, it's assumed to be log base 10. So those two are equivalent up there. But that only works if it's base 10. When we end up with a logarithm that has a different base, like all of these do, we have to find some way that we can change the formula, some way to change the base into being able to use that log button on our calculator, because that log button only knows how to do log base 10. It doesn't know how to do log base 5 or log base 15. That's why we have this change of base formula. You want to take a moment, write this down to your notes if you don't already have it handy, and this is what we're going to now use going forward. So taking a look at number two, if I'm going to use the change of base formula, then I know I'm going to end up having to turn it into something where I have the log over the log. The tricky part is just remembering which number goes on top and which number goes on bottom. The way that I always remember it is I remember the phrase that the base goes on the bottom, and the base is always that number. But a lot of people actually remember it a different way. A lot of people notice that, hey, the 5 is written lower. We physically write it there as a subscript. And so then the 5 is also written lower when we write the fraction. All right, now that we have that, now it's a matter of, again, calculating this value. And sometimes just plugging this into the calculator is the trickiest part because it's very prone to possible errors. Your general strategy is on a scientific calculator, you'll enter your number first, then press log, and then you'll say divide, then you'll enter your number, and then you'll press log again. If you're on a graphing calculator, you can pretty much type it in as you see it. The tricky part there is remembering to end the parentheses, because when you type in log on your calculator, when you press that button on a graphing calculator, it'll display this. It'll do log and then it'll start a parentheses. So I'd have to do log 20, and if I then just said divide by log 5, you'll notice that that log 5 is inside of the first set of parentheses. So I have to end that parenthesis here in order for it to actually be clean. These are the actual keystrokes that you would then need to go through. Now you'll notice in this case that on my scientific calculator, I do have an equal button key press there. The reason is because when I do 20 and then press log, the number displayed on my screen at that moment is the log of 20. And then I say divide, I enter 5, and then I press log, And as soon as I pressed log, what it did is it took the logarithm of 5. It has not yet done the division because it's doing some order of operation stuff in the background. And so we have to press equals at the end of this sequence in order to tell it to actually do the division that we told it about earlier. On the graphing calculator, you'll notice those parentheses are thrown in there so that we remember that we do need to end the parentheses. Go ahead and do these keystrokes, do this calculation on your calculator now to practice it, and then I'll put up the answer here in just a moment. All right, so you should have been able to get an answer here of about 1.86. And again, those are the keystrokes you would follow. So if you had trouble getting that, look back over that list of keystrokes so you can see how that should work out. And then once you're able to get that number, go ahead and work the rest of 3, 4, and 5 out on your own. I suggest you pause the video, and then after you've worked them out, press play, because the next thing you'll be seeing here is the answers to those 3, and then you can just check those out.